The void of space stretched endlessly beyond the viewports of Earth's orbital command station, a deep black canvas dotted with distant stars. Among them, the Galactic Council's communication relay glimmered faintly, a tiny mark of alien bureaucracy, their arrogance floating like a shield across the galaxy. Earth had sent its message, clear and firm, a warning encoded in the most advanced quantum signals human technology could produce. Humanity's voice had traveled across light years, shaking the void itself, yet it was met with silence, and worse, mockery. In the command center of Earth's orbital station, every screen flickered with unread messages, warning signals, and encrypted feeds from secret fleets. Captain Adrian Voss stood at the center of the room, tall and composed, his eyes fixed on the communications array. He had read the Council's reply only minutes ago, and it was everything he expected. Dismissal. Condescension. Mockery. Humans. Holding back. Laughable. Insignificant. They do not know power. They do not know strategy. They are irrelevant. Voss's jaw tightened. Every instinct in his body, every memory of humanity's struggles, burned with the fire of determination. He remembered Earth's past, the centuries of mockery from alien civilizations, the countless times humans were told they were too primitive to matter. Entire colonies had been raided, civilizations wiped out for ignoring council rules. And yet, humans had survived. They had endured. They had evolved. And now, humanity had reached a point that no alien counselor could comprehend, a point where holding back was no longer possible. They chose to ignore us, Voss said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. Now they will see. In the shadows beyond the main hall, Earth's hidden fleets stirred to life. Massive warships, invisible to alien sensors, began to awaken. Experimental technology, long concealed beneath layers of secrecy and decades of research, hummed to life. Every vessel, every system, every weapon had been tested only once, in simulations and under strict protocols. And now, humanity would test them in reality. Lieutenant Mara Kepler, Voss's second-in-command, moved swiftly across the command floor. Her hands danced over the holographic displays, eyes scanning star charts, fleet positions, and communication logs. "Captain," she said, her voice steady despite the tension, "all hidden fleets report ready. Experimental weapons calibrated. Quantum drives operational. We can launch on your command." Voss nodded without turning, his gaze still locked on the blackness beyond the station. "Good. Begin final preparations. We leave nothing to chance. I want every fleet captain ready to execute the plan exactly as we trained. The Council will regret ignoring this warning." Around them, the crew moved with precision, each human aware of the stakes. This was not just a battle, it was a statement. Humans were about to declare, in the clearest terms possible, that they were no longer weak, no longer to be dismissed, no longer irrelevant. The Alien Council believed they had humanity contained, constrained by limits they themselves had underestimated. And they were about to discover the truth. Across the galaxy, in council chambers illuminated by strange crystal lights, alien leaders laughed as they read Earth's warning. Do they think a single planet, a single species, could threaten the Council? One general sneered, his multiple eyes scanning the holographic message. Humans are primitive. They lack the coordination and the power for real war. They cannot possibly match even a single Council fleet. Another leader, older and more cautious, frowned. Perhaps we should not provoke them. They claim advanced weapons, signals we have never seen before. They claim restraint, but if they are holding back, the potential is, his voice trailed off, unspoken, for no alien wanted to admit the possibility. But the Council dismissed the warning. Their arrogance was absolute. Their mockery unchecked. Humans. Irrelevant. Weak. Insignificant. And they continued with their own operations, confident that no threat could emerge from the blue planet called Earth. Back on Earth's command station, Voss watched the alien response, a calm fury in his eyes. He did not shout, did not argue, did not panic. Instead, he turned to the War Council projected on the central hologram. Fleet admirals, engineers, tactical officers, all waited for his command. "Prepare the launch vectors," he said simply. "Phase 1 begins in 30 minutes. Every fleet, every weapon, every strike is synchronized. They will not see us coming." The secret fleets, stationed in hidden sectors beyond the outer edges of known space, began to move. Engines hummed softly, invisible to alien detection. Warships folded into subspace corridors, slipping past every sensor, past every patrol, past every assumption the Council had made. Every move was deliberate, precise, a dance of strategy and technology designed to strike fear into the heart of those who had laughed at humans for centuries. Within the warships, crews held their breath. Some were veterans of past skirmishes, hardened by loss and battle. Others were young, seeing the stars for the first time as warriors, feeling the weight of history pressing on them. Yet all were united by one thought: humanity would no longer wait for permission, would no longer beg for respect, would no longer hide. Captain Voss walked slowly along the command deck, pausing to meet the eyes of his officers. "Remember why we are here," he said quietly, voice carrying an almost invisible tremor of emotion beneath the calm exterior. "Every loss, every sacrifice, every world burned because the Council refused to see us as equals. Today, we show them what it means to ignore humanity. Today, we show them that we will no longer be held back." The ships responded like extensions of his will. Systems came online with perfect synchronization. Weapons aligned, energy cores surged, quantum drives whispered the promise of instantaneous travel. Humans had built tools beyond imagination, and now they would test them. Beyond the secret corridors of space, alien scouts began to notice disturbances in the void, anomalies too small to identify, flickers of energy that made them pause. But they dismissed them. Humans were not a threat. Humans could not be. And so they continued with their operations, blind to the storm forming beyond their perception. On the command station, Voss's hands rested lightly on the control console. He could feel the pulse of every vessel, the hum of every drive, the quiet tension of every human heart. This was not only war, it was history. Every person aboard every ship was carrying the weight of Earth, of humanity, of centuries of being dismissed and underestimated. The silence before the storm was almost unbearable. 10 minutes to launch, Lieutenant Kepler announced. Her voice was steady, but a flicker of emotion ran through her eyes. "All experimental weapons primed. Fleets in formation. We await your command, Captain." Voss took a deep breath. He remembered Earth as it had been centuries ago, small, fragile, defenseless. He remembered colonies lost to alien greed, cities burned by those who claimed superiority. And he remembered the countless times humans had been laughed at, dismissed, and underestimated. Every memory fueled a cold determination. "They chose to ignore us," he said again, softly, almost a whisper, yet it carried through the command deck like a drumbeat of inevitability. "Now they will see. Now they will pay the price of their arrogance." And as he issued the command, the fleet stirred from the shadows of space, hidden no longer. Warships blinked in and out of subspace, experimental weapons came alive with blinding energy, and humanity's message traveled faster than light itself: "We warned you. You did not listen. Now you will see our power." Across the void, distant alien worlds began to sense the first tremors of change. Their councils had mocked Earth, ignored its warnings, believed it powerless. And now, the first sparks of fear began to ignite. The galaxy had dismissed humanity for too long, and the reckoning was about to begin. Captain Voss stood at the command deck, eyes fixed on the darkness, every heartbeat synchronized with the pulse of the fleets. "For humanity," he said quietly. "For every life they thought we could not protect. For every world they believed they could destroy. For the first time, and the last, they will understand." And in the silent expanse of space, hidden fleets prepared to move. Human warships, armed with technology the galaxy could not comprehend, began their slow, deliberate approach toward the outer edges of Council space. The first step in a plan centuries in the making. The first strike in a war no one believed Earth could fight. The first act of a story that would reshape the galaxy forever. The stars seemed to hold their breath. The void waited. And humanity, long dismissed and underestimated, prepared to write history with fire, strategy, and an unbreakable will. Captain Voss allowed himself a final, quiet thought as the countdown continued: "They mocked us. They ignored us. They will never do it again." The aftermath of the first human strike left the Galactic Council in chaos. Across their vast chambers, holograms flickered, officers shouted, and alarms blared as alien fleets struggled to understand the devastation that had just occurred. Entire outposts, designed to hold humanity in check, were reduced to ruins in a matter of moments, leaving the Council's generals scrambling to respond. For the first time in their history, the Council felt fear, the raw, undeniable fear of underestimating a species they had long mocked. On the Bridge of Vigilance, one of Earth's hidden flagship vessels, Captain Adrian Voss watched the chaos unfold across the galaxy's communication feeds. His face was calm, almost stoic, but inside, a storm of emotion surged. Relief, yes, but also sorrow. Every destroyed outpost represented lives, alien lives, yes, but also human lives lost to prior conflicts, sacrificed for this precise moment of reckoning. He thought of every colony razed, every warning ignored, every mockery endured. Humanity had been patient, restrained, careful, but now the time for restraint was over. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's hands moved rapidly over the console. Captain, the Council's main fleets are mobilizing. They're attempting to organize a counterattack, but their communication networks are fractured. They're panicking. Reports indicate confusion in more than 70% of their defensive sectors. Voss nodded, his eyes narrowing. Good. Let them panic. Let them feel what humanity has endured for centuries. They mocked us, ignored us, and now they are learning, too late, that we are not weak. We are not insignificant. We are alive, and we are more powerful than they can comprehend. The crew of Vigilance exchanged glances, a mixture of fear and determination etched into every face. Young soldiers who had never seen battle beyond Earth's orbit gripped consoles with trembling hands. Veteran officers steadied them, whispering reminders of training and courage, of humanity's resilience and the sacrifices that had led them here. Every person aboard the ship understood the weight of the moment. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the legacy of every human who had ever been underestimated or dismissed by the galaxy. Voss moved slowly across the bridge, pausing to look at each officer. Remember, he said, his voice low but firm, every strike we make, every maneuver, every decision carries the memory of those we lost and the hope of those who remain. Today, humanity shows the galaxy that we will never bow, we will never kneel, and we will never be ignored. In the council chambers, alien leaders were in uproar. General Kyl, a towering figure with scaled arms and piercing violet eyes, slammed a clawed hand onto a crystalline table. How can one species, one planet, cause such destruction? Their technology, their tactics, impossible. His voice trembled, but no one dared interrupt. The council's other leaders avoided his gaze, each secretly acknowledging the same terrifying truth. Humans had surpassed every prediction, every calculation, and every expectation. Meanwhile, human fleets moved silently through hidden corridors of space, subspace tunnels that allowed them to bypass sensors and patrols. Every warship, every drone, every experimental weapon was in perfect synchronization. They were invisible predators, striking with precision and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The aliens had no idea what was coming, no clue that a single planet had cultivated such a force. On Vigilance, the tension was almost unbearable. Energy cores hummed like the heartbeat of a living being, each pulse resonating through the hull and through every human aboard. Crew members pressed their palms to consoles as if they could feel the flow of power beneath their hands, a tangible connection to the fate of humanity. The hum grew louder as Voss initiated the next phase of their plan. Phase 3, he whispered. Engage the vectors. Strike where they least expect it. Strike for every life they thought they could destroy. The ship trembled as its experimental drives activated. The warships surged through space with a silent power, their energy fields shimmering like living fire. Alien scouts, detecting the movement, sent frantic messages to their superiors, but they were already too late. Humans had anticipated every move, calculated every angle, and prepared contingencies for every possible response. Panic and fear rippled through the council fleets, but humans remained composed, their resolve unshakable. Lieutenant Kepler's voice broke the silence, tremulous but steady. Captain, our strike positions are in range. Alien defensive systems are attempting to realign, but they cannot respond fast enough. We are ready. Voss's gaze remained fixed on the void, on the distant flickers of enemy fleets that could not see the storm approaching. Do it, he said quietly. And with that single word, humanity unleashed another wave of destruction. Energy pulses erupted from human warships, striking council supply stations, communication hubs, and research installations. The alien forces were caught completely off guard, systems failing faster than they could react. Shields flickered and collapsed, weapons malfunctioned, engines failed mid-burn, and entire fleets drifted helplessly through space. Screams, alarms, and frantic commands filled the alien channels, but every message was drowned in chaos. On vigilance, the crew watched the feeds in tense silence. Some gripped consoles with white-knuckled hands, others pressed together in silent prayer or hope. Tears streaked the faces of young officers who had never imagined themselves at the center of galactic history. Every pulse of the ship, every surge of energy, every command issued felt like a heartbeat, a living connection to the struggle of every human who had come before them. Voss allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He thought of Earth, blue and fragile in the dark, a small planet no one had ever respected. He thought of the colonies destroyed because the Council refused to listen. He thought of every life lost, every dream crushed, every warning ignored. And now, humanity had finally shown the galaxy that patience had limits, that restraint could be fatal, and that the strength of humans was far greater than anyone had imagined. The Council's fleets were in disarray, unable to respond. Alien leaders shouted at one another, pointing fingers, blaming officers, but no one could repair the chaos. Humanity had struck with precision, intelligence, and unyielding courage. They had turned the tables entirely, and the galaxy was learning a lesson it would never forget. As the strike concluded, silence returned, but it was not the calm of peace. It was the tense, electric silence of victory earned through fire and courage. Humans aboard Vigilance exhaled collectively, hearts still racing, hands still trembling. The cost had been high, but the message had been delivered. Humanity had acted, and the Council had learned too late the consequences of ignoring Earth. Voss stood at the observation deck, gazing into the void. Every star seemed sharper, colder, and infinitely more dangerous than before. He thought quietly, almost reverently, they mocked us. They dismissed us. They refused our plea. Now they feel the first taste of what happens when humanity chooses to act. And they will pay the price, one step at a time. The human fleets withdrew silently into hidden corridors of space, leaving behind chaos and fear, their presence invisible yet palpable. The Council fleets reeled, unable to comprehend what had just occurred. Every officer aboard Vigilance felt the weight of history, the responsibility of power, and the unbreakable bond of unity that had brought them this far. In that silent aftermath, as humans prepared for the next phase of their plan, one truth became undeniable: the galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. And the story of the humans' defiance, courage, and unyielding will had only just begun. The silence after the strike was deceptive. Across the galaxy, alien fleets tried to regroup, their communications scrambled, their systems failing, their pride shattered. In the Council chambers, generals bickered and blamed each other, but no plan could repair the damage humanity had wrought. They had assumed humans were weak, predictable, and controllable. They had believed the warnings were empty threats, a bluff from a primitive species. And now, for the first time, they realized how wrong they had been. Deep in hidden space corridors, the human fleet moved like a shadow, unseen but unstoppable. Captain Adrian Voss stood at the command deck of Vigilance, observing the screens showing alien responses and fleet movements. Every detail was precise, every calculation exact. They had not attacked recklessly, every strike had been planned, every move rehearsed, every weapon tested in simulations for decades. Humanity had not rushed blindly into war, they had prepared, hidden, and waited. Now, the moment had come to reveal their greatest secret. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's fingers flew across the console, activating the experimental systems. Captain, the secret fleet is online. Experimental weapons are ready. Quantum disruptors calibrated. Stealth modules operational. We can engage targets simultaneously with maximum precision. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the mix of excitement and fear that ran through the entire crew. Voss nodded, his eyes reflecting the faint glow of the screens. Good. Prepare Phase 4. Target the Council's key research and command stations. Strike simultaneously. Leave them no room to recover. Humanity will show them our power and our purpose in one decisive move. The human crews braced themselves. Some were veterans, hardened by years of preparation, by simulations, by the thought of defending Earth and humanity itself. Others were young recruits, feeling the weight of history pressing on them for the first time. They gripped consoles and handles, hearts racing, hands trembling, yet every human aboard Vigilance and the Hidden Fleet felt a singular certainty. They were the instruments of humanity's message, and failure was not an option. Voss walked slowly among his officers, pausing to look into their eyes. Every world destroyed, every colony lost, every human life taken because the Council ignored us, remember them. Let their memory guide your hands. Let their courage flow through you. Today, we strike not for conquest, not for glory, but for justice. Humanity will no longer be underestimated. The Hidden Fleets moved into position. Massive warships, long concealed behind cloaking fields and subspace corridors, emerged silently, appearing as shadows on alien sensors before vanishing again. The experimental weapons hummed to life, resonating with energy unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Quantum disruptors, capable of dismantling entire fleets at a molecular level, aligned perfectly. The humans were not just fighting, they were redefining the rules of warfare. Across Council space, alien officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Reports of sudden system failures, destroyed outposts, and missing fleets poured in from all sectors. "Impossible," muttered General Kryl, his multiple eyes wide with fear. How can one species, one planet, have such power?" Another counselor, trembling, whispered, "They were holding back, all this time, they were holding back," but no one dared speak too loudly. Panic and disbelief had begun to spread through the Council ranks. The humans they had dismissed, the species they had mocked, were now beyond their comprehension. On Vigilance, the tension was almost unbearable. Every crew member felt the pulse of the ship beneath their feet, the hum of energy resonating through the hull like a heartbeat. Some pressed their palms to consoles, as if feeling the life force of humanity flowing through the machines. Every movement, every breath, every command was a connection to the countless humans who had fought, suffered, and endured for centuries. They were not alone, they carried the weight of their entire species with them. 3 minutes to engagement, Kepler announced. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "All systems ready. The Council won't know what hit them." Voss took a slow, deep breath. He remembered Earth as it had been, fragile and vulnerable, barely noticed in the galaxy. He thought of the countless colonies destroyed, the lives lost because the Council had ignored every warning. He remembered the moments when humanity had been humiliated, dismissed, and mocked. And now, humanity would strike, not in anger alone, but with justice, precision, and the full measure of the power they had been forced to conceal for so long. "Engage," he said quietly, a single word carrying the weight of centuries. The Hidden Fleet moved as one, ghost-like across the void. Energy pulses erupted from experimental weapons, cutting through alien shields, dismantling command networks, and crippling fleets before they could even respond. Alien vessels shuddered, systems failed, and communications fell silent. The Council's panic spread across their networks like wildfire. Commands were shouted, ignored, contradicted, but it was all futile. Humanity had already won this round. On Vigilance, some crew members wept openly, not for themselves, but for the lives lost in the past, the families, the colonies, the people who had suffered at the Council's arrogance. Others held each other in silent acknowledgement, feeling the unspoken bond of shared purpose, courage, and loss. Every pulse of the experimental cause, every surge of energy, every maneuver carried the memory of humanity's suffering and the unbreakable will that had endured it. Voss walked to the observation deck, gazing into the darkness of space. He saw the Council's fleets in disarray, their pride shattered, their arrogance replaced by panic and fear. He allowed himself a brief, quiet thought, a whisper to the universe: "They dismissed us. They mocked us. They refused our plea. And now, they are learning that humanity is not a species to underestimate. We strike not for vengeance alone, but to declare that we will survive, we will endure, and we will not bow." The Hidden Fleets withdrew into subspace corridors, leaving alien fleets crippled, confused, and trembling. Humanity's strike had been precise, devastating, and surgical, yet not reckless. The message was clear: Earth had the power to strike anywhere, at any time, and the Council had learned the cost of ignoring humanity. Inside Vigilance, the crew exhaled collectively, exhaustion mixing with exhilaration. Their hearts still raced, their hands still trembled, but the knowledge of what they had accomplished settled over them like a mantle. They had proven that humanity was more than a planet, more than a species. Humans were a force of will, ingenuity, and courage, and the galaxy could no longer pretend otherwise. Captain Voss allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought of every human life lost, every colony destroyed, every warning ignored. And he thought of the generations to come, who would never again be dismissed, mocked, or underestimated. Humanity had shown the first proof of its power, and this was only the beginning. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation deck, silent witnesses to humanity's first true strike. And as vigilance drifted silently through the void, every human aboard understood a single, undeniable truth. The galaxy had misjudged them, dismissed them, and mocked them for the last time. Humanity had awakened. Humanity had acted. And the Council would soon pay the price for every slight, every insult, every ignored plea. The alien fleets were in total disarray. Communications were fractured, command chains broken, and pride shattered across the Council's sectors. Ships drifted helplessly through the void, engines failing, shields flickering, weapons offline. For the first time in their long history, the Galactic Council felt the weight of true fear. They had underestimated humanity, dismissed Earth as a primitive planet, laughed at warnings that were not empty. And now, they were paying the price. On the bridge of vigilance, Captain Adrian Voss stood silently, watching the alien fleets falter. His eyes, calm and steady, reflected both the devastation and the cost. This was not a moment of celebration, it was a moment of reckoning, and every human aboard every fleet understood the gravity of what they were witnessing. Each pulse of the ship's experimental drives vibrated through their bones, a heartbeat that connected every crew member to the legacy of humanity itself. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's hands flew across the console as she monitored strike coordinates. Captain, all primary targets are in position. Alien command hubs are destabilizing. Defensive networks are collapsing. Our strike pattern is synchronized. Engagement imminent. Her voice was steady, but the faint tremor in her tone betrayed the mixture of fear and exhilaration that ran through the crew. Voss nodded, walking slowly among his officers. This is what happens when patience meets power. Every outpost destroyed, every fleet crippled, is a message. The galaxy will never dismiss humanity again. Remember, we strike not for vengeance alone, but for justice. Every life they thought they could take, every colony they ignored, every warning they laughed at, they all echo through us now. Make them pay, but make them understand the cost of their arrogance. The hidden fleets surged forward, like a shadow moving through the void. Experimental warships, long concealed, blinked in and out of subspace, appearing only when ready to strike. Quantum disruptors, plasma cannons, and energy arrays aligned with deadly precision. Alien fleets, scattered and disoriented, could barely register the human ships before devastation fell upon them. On one alien flagship, General Kryl's multiple eyes widened in horror. Impossible! One planet, one species, how can they strike like this? Their tactics, their speed, it's unimaginable. He slammed a clawed hand onto the crystalline console, but it did no good. Systems were failing. Officers panicked, trying to coordinate responses, but nothing worked. Humanity had anticipated every move, every possible counter, every flaw in their strategy. They had become ghosts, hunters, and executioners all at once. The first major strike hit with surgical precision. A council fleet, once thought invincible, shuddered under the assault. Shields collapsed like paper, engines overloaded and exploded, weapons melted in mid-charge. Hundreds of ships were reduced to drifting wreckage in moments, and the void was filled with the eerie silence of defeat. Alien crews screamed, shouted, begged for mercy, but humans did not hesitate. The strike was calculated, efficient, and final. Inside vigilance, the crew felt the weight of their actions. Young officers, seeing the destruction firsthand, trembled and cried silently. Some pressed their hands to consoles as if trying to feel the lives lost, others stared at the screens in awe and disbelief. Veterans gripped their stations tightly, fighting to maintain composure as the reality of their mission settled in. Humanity had become more than a planet, more than a species. They had become a force that could not be stopped, a reckoning that the Council had brought upon itself. Voss watched the battlefield unfold, calm but deeply aware of the emotional toll. Every strike we make carries the memory of those who suffered, he murmured. Every colony lost, every life ignored, every warning dismissed, it all flows through this moment. Humanity does not strike recklessly. We strike with purpose, precision, and justice. Remember that. The alien fleets attempted to regroup, but their coordination had been shattered beyond repair. Officers shouted in disbelief, generals argued and blamed one another, and soldiers froze at the sight of their ships falling one by one. The Council had assumed their superiority was absolute, but now they were learning the terrifying truth: humans could adapt, strategize, and strike with devastating effect. They had underestimated the very species they believed to be weak. The human strike continued with relentless precision. Experimental weapons fired in perfect timing, dismantling command structures, crippling fleets, and cutting off reinforcements before they could arrive. Alien ships collided as pilots panicked, fleets fragmented into chaos, and the Council's sense of control evaporated. Humanity's message was clear: underestimate us at your own peril. Inside the control room of Vigilance, some crew members wept openly, not from fear, but from the gravity of what they had accomplished. Each pulse of the ship, each surge of energy, each maneuver carried the weight of human history, the suffering endured for centuries, and the unbreakable will of a species that refused to be dismissed. They had become instruments of both justice and retribution, and every human aboard understood the enormity of the moment. Voss moved to the observation deck, gazing at the ruined alien fleet scattered across the void. He allowed himself a rare, quiet moment of reflection. Earth had been fragile, underestimated, and mocked for generations. Colonies had burned, warnings had been ignored, and humanity had been dismissed time and again. Now, humans were no longer the species to be laughed at. They were the species that commanded attention, that inspired fear, that demanded respect. Phase 5 ready, Kepler reported softly. Alien command structures are in collapse. Reinforcements are disoriented. We can press forward or hold our position. Voss's eyes were steady, unwavering. We press forward. Humanity does not strike once and stop. We strike with purpose. Every fleet we dismantle, every outpost we disable, every message we send, they must understand. Earth warned them. They ignored us. Now they pay. The hidden fleets moved again, shadows in the void, striking decisively at scattered alien units. Every pulse of energy, every devastating shot, every maneuver reinforced a single truth: the galaxy could no longer dismiss humanity. They had underestimated a species that refused to bow, refused to kneel, and refused to be ignored. On Vigilance, the crew exhaled collectively as the strike concluded, hearts still racing, hands still trembling, eyes still wide with the magnitude of what they had achieved. They had struck decisively, they had demonstrated unparalleled strategy, and they had delivered a message centuries in the making. The Council had learned, painfully and irrevocably, that humanity was not to be dismissed. Captain Voss allowed himself one final thought, quiet but powerful: they ignored our plea. They laughed at our warnings. They mocked our patience. Now they see the cost of underestimating humanity. And this is only the beginning. The stars beyond the observation deck seemed to shine brighter, almost as if acknowledging the moment. Humanity had acted, and the galaxy would never forget the first strike that shattered arrogance, dismantled fleets, and announced the rise of a species that would no longer be ignored. Humanity had proven it was unstoppable when united, relentless when provoked, and unbreakable when defending its own. The galaxy was trembling. Alien fleets that had once prided themselves on absolute dominance were in chaos, their formations shattered, their communications fractured, their pride utterly destroyed. Across Council space, generals barked orders that went unheard, officers panicked, and ships drifted helplessly, engines failing, weapons offline, shields collapsing. Humanity's strike had been precise, surgical, and devastating. The Council had thought they could retaliate, but humans had anticipated every move. And now, the first wave of alien retaliation approached, and they would soon learn that humanity did not simply react. Humanity planned, adapted, and struck before any threat could form. On the bridge of Vigilance, Captain Adrian Voss stood motionless, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the void. He could feel the pulse of the ship beneath his feet, the hum of experimental drives vibrating through the hull like the heartbeat of a living being. Every human aboard understood the stakes. They had struck first, decisively, but now the Council would attempt to respond. Every nerve was taut, every mind focused, every heart beating in rhythm with the ship. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's fingers danced across her console. Captain, alien fleets are mobilizing for retaliation. Their weapons are online. Shields are charging. Estimated engagement in 8 minutes. Her voice was steady, but the faint tremor betrayed the tension gripping the crew. Voss nodded, walking slowly across the bridge. Good. Let them come. Every move they make, we have already calculated. Every attack they plan, we are ready. Humanity will not only survive this retaliation, we will make them regret it. The hidden fleets shifted silently, slipping through subspace corridors, positioning themselves for maximum advantage. Experimental weapons hummed to life, energy cores thrummed with latent power, and quantum disruptors aligned with deadly precision. Humans had prepared for this exact moment. They had expected the Council's arrogance and pride to fuel a response, and they had built strategies to counter it before a single alien could react. Across Council space, alien officers shouted orders in panic. General Kyl, wide-eyed and shaking, slammed his clawed hands against the crystalline table. How can one species defy us? How can they anticipate every move, strike every weakness, and remain invisible? Other officers avoided his gaze, fear mirrored in every eye. The Council's confidence was gone, replaced by doubt, confusion, and terror. Humans were not just strong, they were brilliant, disciplined, and terrifyingly precise. On vigilance, the crew braced themselves. Young officers, seeing the alien response for the first time, gripped consoles until their knuckles whitened. Veterans whispered reminders, quietly steadying the nerves of those who were about to face the first true counterattack. Every human aboard understood the stakes. If they failed, Earth would suffer, colonies would be lost, and centuries of patient preparation would be wasted. But failure was not an option. Humanity had waited too long, suffered too much, and endured too many insults to falter now. Voss walked to the observation deck, his gaze piercing the darkness beyond the station. Alien ships appeared faintly on distant sensors, forming lines that were meant to intimidate. He saw the subtle misalignments, the confusion, the panic hidden beneath the rigid protocols of a species unaccustomed to being challenged. Humanity would exploit every flaw, every hesitation, every fear. The humans aboard Vigilance were not only ready, they were alive with purpose, fueled by centuries of being underestimated. 3 minutes to engagement, Kepler announced. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. They are aligning for an attack. Estimates indicate a coordinated strike on our forward positions. Voss nodded. Good. Let them come. Humanity strikes with precision, not panic. Every move they make is anticipated. Every attack they plan has been accounted for. Remember, this is not only war, it is proof. Proof that humans will not bow, will not kneel, and will not be ignored. The alien fleets surged forward, engines blazing, weapons charging. They believed their retaliation would crush the humans, would punish Earth for its defiance. But humanity had prepared. Fleets shifted into position, aligning like a living machine, experimental weapons humming in perfect synchronization. The first wave of alien fire struck, and it was met with countermeasures so fast, so precise, that the Council's attack barely grazed the human shields. Voss's voice was calm, almost serene. Return fire. Engage countermeasures. Focus on disruption, not destruction. Let them feel the consequences of underestimating humanity. The human warships moved with calculated elegance, dodging attacks while striking at vulnerable points. Alien engines overloaded under targeted assaults, weapons malfunctioned, and communication networks were severed. Panic spread through the Council fleets as their carefully planned retaliation collapsed in real time. Humans moved not with brute force alone, but with a mastery of strategy, timing, and foresight that no alien mind could comprehend. Inside Vigilance, crew members held their stations with trembling hands. Some whispered prayers under their breath, others wept quietly, overwhelmed by the tension and the responsibility. Every pulse of the ship, every surge of energy, every maneuver carried the memory of centuries of suffering, the losses endured, and the unyielding determination of a species that refused to be dismissed. Humanity was not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for justice, for legacy, and for the future of every human in the galaxy. The alien retaliation faltered. Their formations broke apart, engines failing mid-maneuver, weapons misfiring, crews in panic. Every attempt to strike humans was met with precise, adaptive countermeasures. Humanity had turned the Council's own arrogance against them, demonstrating that intelligence, planning, and unity could overcome raw power. Voss allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He thought of Earth as it had been centuries ago, fragile, underestimated, almost insignificant in the eyes of the galaxy. He thought of colonies destroyed, lives lost, and warnings ignored. And he thought of the humans aboard Vigilance and every hidden fleet, who carried the weight of history on their shoulders. They thought they could punish us. They thought they could teach us a lesson. They were wrong. Countermeasures successful, Kepler reported softly. Retaliation neutralized. Alien forces scattered and disoriented. We hold the advantage. Voss's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. Good. Humanity does not strike blindly. We fight with purpose. We fight with strategy. And now, they will understand that every attack against us is not met with panic, but with precision and resolve. We are not to be underestimated. We are not to be ignored. We are humanity. The fleets moved again, silent, invisible, deadly. Alien commanders struggled to regroup, but every movement was anticipated, every plan countered, every attempt at retaliation dismantled. Humanity had turned the first wave of alien aggression into a lesson in futility. Inside Vigilance, the crew exhaled, their hearts still racing, their hands still trembling. Young officers looked at veterans, silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had survived the first real test of battle. They had proven themselves capable, precise, and resilient. Humanity had not only survived, they had triumphed. Captain Voss stood at the observation deck, staring into the void. The alien fleets were scattered, disoriented, broken. Humanity had proven its strength, its intelligence, and its resolve. And the Council, arrogant and dismissive for so long, had learned a terrifying truth. Humans did not strike blindly, humans did not retreat, and humans would never bow to threats or intimidation. The stars stretched endlessly before him, silent witnesses to the human triumph. Humanity had survived the first retaliation. Humanity had proven its power. And the story of their rise, of their defiance, and of the reckoning to come had only just begun. The remnants of the alien fleets drifted in confusion, scattered like leaves in a violent storm. Their ships were battered, their officers panicked, and the pride that had carried them through centuries was shattered beyond repair. Across Council space, alarms blared in vain, communication networks jammed by human precision strikes. The Galactic Council had assumed dominance, believed in their own superiority, and dismissed Earth's warnings. Now, that arrogance lay in ruins before them, and humanity prepared for the counterattack that would define the galaxy. On the bridge of Vigilance, Captain Adrian Voss watched the fragmented fleets through the viewport. His expression was calm, controlled, but within him, a surge of emotion burned, relief, sorrow, pride, and determination intertwined. Each ship destroyed, each system dismantled, carried a story of lives lost, colonies abandoned, and warnings ignored. Humanity's patience had run thin. Every moment of silence before now had been a preparation, a reckoning waiting to be unleashed. And the time had come. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's hands flew across the console. Captain, alien command nodes are isolated. Defensive formations are fractured. Estimated recovery time is minimal, but they will not reorganize in time for our next strike. We are clear to engage. Phase 7 is ready. Her voice was steady, but the tension in the room was palpable. Young crew members pressed their palms to consoles as if to absorb courage from the very hum of the ship. The energy in the room was electric, anticipation mixed with fear, exhilaration, and the weight of responsibility. Voss stepped forward, walking slowly among his officers. Listen carefully. Every maneuver, every strike, every decision carries the weight of humanity. We do not strike recklessly. We strike with purpose. Every outpost destroyed, every fleet crippled, every warning ignored, our enemies will learn the cost of underestimating humans. Remember the colonies, remember the lives lost, remember the patience they thought we had forever. This is not vengeance. This is justice. And this is humanity. The human fleets moved with silent precision. Shadows in the void, cloaked and hidden, they positioned themselves strategically around the scattered alien forces. Experimental weapons hummed in unison, energy cores thrumming like a heartbeat. Quantum disruptors, plasma cannons, and energy arrays lined up, ready to unleash simultaneous strikes on every vulnerable target. Humanity had turned preparation into art, strategy into weaponry, and patience into inevitability. Across council space, panic spread like wildfire. Officers shouted orders that could not be executed, fleets collided in confusion, and general after general realized that their assumptions had been catastrophically wrong. They anticipate everything. General Kryl roared, his claws pounding against the crystalline table. Every move, every maneuver, it's impossible. How can one species predict every counter, every strategy, every weakness? Even his peers, who had once laughed at Earth's warnings, could not answer. The humans had surpassed every prediction, every calculation, every expectation. They had turned the Council's arrogance into a weapon against them. For every attack launched by the aliens, humanity had a counter, a plan, a precision strike that left fleets crippled and leaders scrambling. On Vigilance, the tension was almost unbearable. Crew members held their stations with white-knuckled determination. Young officers, seeing their first major engagement, struggled to maintain composure, while veterans whispered encouragement, steadying trembling hands and pounding hearts. The hum of energy from the experimental cores resonated through the hull, connecting every human aboard the ship to the mission, to each other, and to the weight of history that had led them here. Engage, Voss commanded softly, but with authority that resonated through the entire fleet. His voice carried the gravity of centuries of being dismissed, the memory of colonies destroyed, and the unbreakable resolve of a species that refused to bow. The hidden human fleets struck as one. Energy beams cut through alien shields, quantum disruptors tore ships apart at the molecular level, and plasma cannons obliterated command nodes in perfect synchronization. Alien vessels that had survived previous strikes were destroyed or disabled. Systems collapsed mid-burn, weapons overloaded and exploded, and officers on alien bridges froze in disbelief. Humanity was no longer a single planet. It was an unstoppable force, a precise, calculating machine that could dismantle entire fleets with minimal effort. Inside Vigilance, some crew members wept quietly, overwhelmed by the gravity of the strikes. Young soldiers who had never experienced combat beyond simulations now faced the reality of war, witnessing the consequences of centuries of Council negligence. Others gripped consoles tightly, breathing in sync with the ship, feeling every pulse of energy as if it were the heartbeat of humanity itself. The battle was not just a clash of fleets, it was a reflection of every insult, every dismissal, every warning ignored. Humanity was delivering not only a strike, but a message that would echo across the stars. Voss moved to the observation deck, staring into the void where alien fleets floundered. Each destroyed ship, each faltering system, was a reminder of the patience and resilience of humanity. He thought of Earth, fragile and overlooked, and of the countless colonies destroyed because the Council had ignored their warnings. He thought of the humans aboard every hidden ship, carrying the weight of history and the burden of responsibility. Humanity had not come to negotiate. Humanity had come to enforce a lesson centuries in the making. Phase 7 successful, Kepler reported, her voice tight with emotion. Alien fleets scattered. Command nodes destroyed. Defensive networks dismantled. They cannot regroup in time for another attack. Voss allowed a brief exhale, though his eyes remained fixed on the chaos beyond. Good. Humanity fights not only with weapons, but with unity, intelligence, and resolve. Every life lost in the past, every warning ignored, every dismissal, they fuel us. They remind us that we will not bow, we will not kneel, and we will not be ignored. The hidden fleets moved silently once again, drifting into position for the next phase, leaving alien commanders to comprehend the devastation. Panic, confusion, and fear spread across Council space. The Council had underestimated humans for the last time. Humanity had proven that patience, intelligence, strategy, and courage were far more powerful than arrogance, numbers, or pride. On Vigilance, the crew exhaled collectively, some trembling, some silent, all aware of the gravity of what they had achieved. They had survived the first wave of retaliation. They had turned chaos into order, fear into advantage, and precision into victory. Humanity had struck, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Captain Voss stood alone at the observation deck, staring into the endless void. The alien fleets were scattered, demoralized, and broken. Humanity had demonstrated its strength, its intelligence, and its unyielding will. And in that silence, a single truth resonated. The Council had been warned, ignored the plea, and now would feel the full consequence of humanity's resolve. They mocked us. They laughed at our warnings. They ignored our patience. Now they pay. And the story of humanity's rise has only just begun. The galaxy had never seen such precision, such coordination, such terrifying resolve. Alien fleets, once confident in their superiority, now drifted helplessly, crippled, and demoralized. Across council space, generals shouted orders that were ignored by failing ships, officers panicked, and countless vessels drifted, engines dead, weapons offline, shields flickering, leaving crews helpless against the oncoming human strike. Humanity's patience had ended, and the hidden fleets were ready to deliver the next wave, a wave that would leave the council reeling, their arrogance shattered beyond repair. Captain Adrian Voss stood on the bridge of vigilance, silent for a moment, letting the enormity of their mission sink in. The first waves had succeeded beyond expectation, scattering fleets and dismantling command networks. But this next phase, Phase 8, was the heart of their message. Humanity would strike not only with weapons but with justice, with resolve, and with the weight of centuries of dismissal and suffering. Every human aboard every ship knew this was more than a battle, it was a declaration. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's hands moved quickly over the consoles, activating the synchronized assault protocols. Captain, Phase 8 is ready. Quantum disruptors at full capacity. Stealth modules online. Target coordinates locked. Alien fleets are isolated and scattered. Engagement in 2 minutes. Her voice was steady, but the slight tremor betrayed a surge of tension and emotion. Young officers pressed their palms against the consoles, feeling the pulse of the ship as if it were the heartbeat of humanity itself. They were about to witness history, to strike a blow that would resonate across the galaxy for generations. Voss walked slowly among the crew. "Listen carefully," he said. "Every strike we make, every move we execute, carries the memory of humanity's suffering. Every warning ignored, every colony destroyed, every life lost. This is the moment we turn patience into power. We strike not for anger alone, but for justice. Humanity will not bow, will not kneel, and will not be dismissed ever again. Remember why we fight. Remember those who came before us. Remember every sacrifice. Every pulse, every maneuver, every action carries the weight of humanity itself." The hidden fleets shifted silently, like ghosts emerging from subspace corridors. Experimental weapons hummed with energy, pulsing through the hulls of the warships. Quantum disruptors aligned perfectly, plasma cannons charged, and energy arrays focused on the scattered alien fleets. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades. Every calculation, every simulation, every possible countermeasure had been tested, refined, and perfected. The galaxy had assumed humans were primitive. Now, humans were unstoppable. Across council space, alien fleets tried to reorganize, but it was too late. Officers shouted commands that went unanswered, engines flared and failed, weapons overloaded, and ships collided in confusion. General Kryl's multiple eyes widened in disbelief. "This cannot be. How can one species anticipate every move, every counter, every weakness? They are everywhere and nowhere at once." His claws struck the crystalline console repeatedly, but nothing could reverse the chaos. Humanity had turned their arrogance into its own undoing. Voss stood at the observation deck, watching the alien fleets falter and shudder under coordinated human strikes. Energy beams tore through shields, quantum disruptors unraveled hulls, and plasma cannons disintegrated command stations before anyone could respond. Alien ships were shredded, systems disabled mid-burn, and officers aboard those vessels screamed, shouted, and pleaded, but humanity did not pause. This was not recklessness. This was precision. This was justice. This was the full measure of human preparation and resolve. On vigilance, crew members held their stations with white-knuckled determination. Young officers trembled, witnessing the destruction in real time, while veterans whispered reminders, steadying hands and hearts. Each pulse of the ship, every surge of energy, every maneuver carried the memory of lives lost, of colonies destroyed, of warnings ignored. Humanity was fighting not for conquest, not for glory, but for every human life that had ever been dismissed, ignored, or endangered. "Engage all targets," Voss commanded. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried the weight of centuries of oppression, ridicule, and neglect. Phase 8 is humanity's declaration. Every strike is a lesson. Every fleet disabled is proof. Every command center destroyed is a reminder, we will not be underestimated. The hidden fleets moved with deadly elegance, appearing suddenly to strike multiple alien fleets simultaneously, then vanishing before counterattacks could be organized. Shields melted under precision energy pulses, engines exploded, and alien command stations were obliterated in perfect synchronization. The Council had thought they were untouchable. They had believed in their absolute superiority. Now they were learning, painfully and irrevocably, that humans were not only strong, they were brilliant, relentless, and united in purpose. Inside Vigilance, some crew members wept quietly, overwhelmed by the scope and impact of their actions. Young soldiers, seeing the alien fleets fall one by one, pressed their hands against consoles as if to feel the weight of history itself. Veterans nodded silently, proud yet somber, knowing the cost of humanity's rise. Every pulse of the ship, every surge of experimental energy, every calculated strike was a testament to centuries of patience, planning, and survival. Humanity had taken the first step in reclaiming its dignity, and now the galaxy would know its power. Voss allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought of Earth, fragile and underestimated, and of the countless colonies lost to Council neglect. He thought of the humans aboard every hidden fleet, carrying the weight of history and the responsibility of change. Humanity had struck not just to win battles, but to awaken the galaxy to a truth long ignored. Humans were no longer to be dismissed, no longer to be underestimated, and no longer to be silenced. Phase 8 complete, Kepler reported. Her voice was soft, yet filled with emotion. Alien fleets scattered. Command centers destroyed. Defensive networks dismantled. They cannot recover in time for another attack. Voss nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the void. Good. Humanity fights not only with strength, but with intelligence, strategy, and resolve. They mocked us. They dismissed us. They ignored our patience. Now they see the cost of underestimating Earth and its people. And this is only the beginning. The stars outside seemed to glow brighter as Vigilance drifted through the void. Humanity had struck decisively, efficiently, and with the full force of its intellect and courage. Alien fleets lay crippled, scattered, and broken. The Council had been warned. They had refused to listen. And now, they were paying the price for centuries of arrogance, for every life lost, for every warning ignored. Humanity had not only survived, it had proven itself unstoppable, precise, and unbreakable. The message echoed through the void, silent but undeniable: Earth would no longer bow. Humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never forget. The alien fleets were broken, scattered across the void, their command networks in ruins, their pride shattered beyond repair. Across Council space, panic had become a living thing, spreading from bridge to bridge, from fleet to fleet, infecting officers and soldiers alike with a fear they had never known. Humanity had struck with precision, power, and intelligence, turning arrogance into vulnerability. Now, as the dust of Phase 8 settled, a deeper reckoning began, the reckoning of a species that had been underestimated for far too long. Captain Adrian Voss stood silently on the bridge of Vigilance, eyes fixed on the chaotic void outside. Each destroyed fleet, each shattered command node, each flickering signal of alien panic carried the weight of centuries of dismissal and ridicule. Humanity had waited, endured, and planned. Every strike was a message, every maneuver a testament to the unbreakable will of a species that refused to bow. Now, the humans would push further, not recklessly, but decisively, to ensure that the Council truly understood the price of ignoring them. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's fingers flew across the console. Captain, alien fleets are attempting to regroup near the sector boundary. Shields are low, engines failing. Our strikes have caused irreparable confusion. We can neutralize them completely if we engage now. Her voice was calm, but the tension and emotion in the room were palpable. Young officers gripped their consoles tightly, feeling the pulse of the ship as if it were the heartbeat of humanity itself, a pulse that connected every human across every hidden fleet in the galaxy. Voss walked slowly among his officers, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Listen carefully. Humanity is not fighting merely to destroy fleets or command centers. We are sending a message to the galaxy: do not underestimate us. Do not dismiss us. Every colony lost, every life ignored, every warning dismissed flows through our actions. We strike with purpose, precision, and justice. This is humanity asserting itself. Remember why we fight, and let every action carry the memory of those who came before us. The hidden fleets shifted silently, emerging from subspace corridors like shadows of inevitability. Experimental weapons hummed with lethal energy, quantum disruptors aligning with pinpoint precision, plasma cannons charging to obliterate the fractured alien fleets. Humans had prepared for this moment for decades. Every simulation, every calculation, every possible countermeasure had been tested and perfected. The Council had assumed that numbers, technology, and arrogance could protect them. Humanity was about to show them the futility of that belief. Across Council space, alien generals shouted frantic orders. General Kyrl's multiple eyes were wide with terror. They anticipate everything. Every maneuver, every strike, every weak point. It is impossible. How can one species predict, counter, and destroy so efficiently? Officers scrambled, collisions erupted in the void, and countless vessels drifted helplessly. Humanity had turned their arrogance, their pride, and their confidence against them. They were no longer merely outmatched, they were outclassed, outthought, and outmaneuvered. On vigilance, the crew braced for action. Young officers, seeing the scale of the devastation, pressed their palms against consoles, their hearts pounding. Veterans whispered encouragement, steadying hands and minds. The hum of the ship's energy resonated through every hull, binding humans aboard every hidden vessel to a single purpose: survival, justice, and the defense of their species. Humanity was no longer the hunted, it was the predator, precise, patient, and unstoppable. Engage final targets, Voss commanded softly, but with the authority that carried across every ship in the hidden fleets. His words bore the weight of history, suffering, and determination. Phase 9 is our declaration. Humanity will not be ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. Every fleet disabled, every command station destroyed, every officer shattered, they must feel the consequence of arrogance and dismissal. The fleets moved as one, striking alien formations with lethal efficiency. Quantum disruptors tore ships apart at the molecular level, plasma cannons disintegrated command stations in perfect synchronization, and energy arrays disabled fleets mid-flight. Alien ships, scattered and disoriented, were destroyed before they could react. Officers screamed, shouted, and pleaded, but the humans did not hesitate. This was not recklessness. It was precise, calculated justice. Humanity was delivering the full weight of its preparation, patience, and power. Inside Vigilance, some crew members wept quietly, overwhelmed by the scope of their actions. Young soldiers who had trained for simulations now witnessed real consequences, real devastation, and the weight of centuries of human endurance. Veterans nodded silently, proud yet solemn, knowing the significance of what they had accomplished. Each pulse of the ship, every surge of energy, and every coordinated strike carried the memory of lives lost, colonies abandoned, and warnings ignored. Humanity had turned history into action, and the galaxy would never forget it. Voss walked to the observation deck, watching alien fleets falter and shudder under coordinated human strikes. He thought of Earth, fragile and overlooked, and of the countless colonies destroyed because the Council had ignored humanity's warnings. He thought of every human aboard every hidden fleet, carrying the weight of history and the responsibility of justice. Humanity had struck not to conquer, not for glory, but to awaken the galaxy to a truth long ignored. Humans were not weak, humans were not insignificant, and humans would no longer be underestimated. Phase 9 complete, Kepler reported, voice tight with emotion. Alien forces scattered. Command nodes destroyed. Defensive networks dismantled. They cannot recover in time for another strike. Voss allowed himself a brief exhale, though his eyes remained fixed on the void. Good. Humanity fights not only with strength, but with intelligence, strategy, and resolve. They mocked us. They dismissed us. They ignored our patience. Now they see the cost of underestimating Earth and its people. And the story of humanity's rise has only just begun. The stars outside seemed to glow brighter as Vigilance drifted through the void. Humanity had struck decisively, efficiently, and with the full force of its intellect and courage. Alien fleets lay crippled, scattered, and broken. The Council had been warned. They had refused to listen. And now, they were paying the price for centuries of arrogance, for every life lost, for every warning ignored. Humanity had not only survived, they had proven themselves unstoppable, precise, and unbreakable. The message echoed across the void, silent but undeniable. Earth would no longer bow, humanity would no longer kneel, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Alien fleets that had once been proud and arrogant now drifted in disarray, shattered by the relentless precision of humanity. Across council space, alarms screamed, officers shouted in panic, and generals stared at failing consoles with terror in their eyes. Humanity had dismantled their command structures, disabled their fleets, and broken the pride that had sustained their rule for centuries. And now, the final phase, the decisive strike, was ready to unfold. Captain Adrian Voss stood silently on the bridge of vigilance, his eyes fixed on the chaos outside. Every destroyed ship, every fallen command station, every flickering system was a testament to centuries of patience, endurance, and careful preparation. Humanity had waited, suffered, and planned, and now, the culmination of that patience was here. Every human aboard every hidden fleet knew the stakes. This strike would decide not only the battle, but the message humanity sent to the entire galaxy. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's hands flew over her console. Captain, Phase 10 is ready. Alien fleets are scattered and isolated. Command nodes are in ruins. Shields are down, engines failing. This strike will be decisive. Engagement in 1 minute. Her voice was calm, but the tension in the room was electric. Young officers gripped consoles as if to anchor themselves, feeling the pulse of the ship like the heartbeat of humanity itself. Every crew member understood the gravity of what was about to unfold, the culmination of centuries of warnings ignored and arrogance punished. Voss walked slowly among the officers, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Listen carefully. This is not just a strike. This is a message to the galaxy. Every life ignored, every warning dismissed, every colony destroyed is reflected in this moment. We strike not for revenge, but for justice. Humanity will no longer be underestimated. Humanity will no longer be ignored. Every move, every pulse, every shot must carry the weight of history, the sacrifice of those who came before us, and the unbreakable will of our species. The hidden fleets shifted silently, emerging from subspace corridors like shadows of inevitability. Experimental weapons hummed with energy, quantum disruptors aligned with deadly precision, and plasma cannons charged to obliterate the fractured alien fleets. Humanity had anticipated every possible move, every counter, every misstep. The Council had believed in their superiority, but humans had turned their arrogance into a weapon against them, and now the final blow would land. Across Council space, alien officers scrambled in panic. General Kyryl's eyes widened in disbelief, his claws slamming against the crystalline console. Impossible! Every move, every strike, every counter, they anticipate everything. How can one species dominate so completely? Chaos reigned as ships collided, weapons misfired, and command networks collapsed further. Humanity had proven that strategy, patience, and intelligence were far more deadly than sheer numbers or raw firepower. On vigilance, the crew braced for the final engagement. Young officers trembled, hearts pounding, while veterans whispered quietly, steadying their comrades. Every pulse of the ship, every surge of energy, every maneuver carried the weight of human history. This was not a battle for conquest. This was a reckoning for centuries of arrogance, for lives dismissed, for warnings ignored. Humanity had become not only the hunter, but the embodiment of justice itself. Engage final targets, Voss commanded. His voice was calm, resolute, but every word carried the weight of centuries of endurance and preparation. Phase 10 is the culmination of our patience. Every strike, every fleet disabled, every command station destroyed is a lesson. Humanity will not bow, will not kneel, and will never be underestimated. Show them the cost of arrogance. The hidden fleets moved with perfect coordination, striking alien forces from multiple angles simultaneously. Quantum disruptors tore ships apart at the molecular level, energy beams melted shields, and plasma cannons obliterated command centers in perfect synchronization. Alien vessels were destroyed before crews could respond, systems failed mid-burn, and officers screamed, shouted, and pleaded in vain. Humanity had turned the Council's own pride, arrogance, and confidence against them with terrifying efficiency. Inside Vigilance, some crew members wept quietly, overwhelmed by the scale and consequence of their actions. Young soldiers, witnessing the full devastation, pressed their hands against consoles, feeling the pulse of history in their fingertips. Veterans stood silent, proud but somber, knowing the significance of what humanity had achieved. Every strike carried the memory of lives lost, colonies abandoned, and warnings ignored. Humanity had turned centuries of patience into a decisive message that would echo across the stars. Voss moved to the observation deck, watching alien fleets falter under the coordinated assault. Each destroyed vessel, each collapsing command station, each flickering signal of fear reflected the unbreakable resolve of humanity. Earth, fragile and dismissed, had risen to become a force the galaxy could not ignore. Humanity's hidden fleets were no longer merely defensive, they were the instruments of reckoning, and the Council had brought this moment upon themselves. Phase 10 complete, Kepler reported, voice tight with emotion. Alien forces neutralized. Command nodes destroyed. Defensive networks dismantled. They cannot recover. The Council's fleets are broken. Voss exhaled, though his eyes remained fixed on the void. Good. Humanity fights not only with strength, but with intelligence, strategy, and purpose. They mocked us. They dismissed our warnings. They ignored our patience. Now they understand the cost of underestimating Earth. And this is only the beginning. Humanity will no longer be silenced, ignored, or underestimated. The galaxy has learned the truth: we are unstoppable when united, precise when provoked, and unbreakable when defending our own. The stars outside glimmered in silence, silent witnesses to the human triumph. Alien fleets were scattered, crippled, and broken. The Council had been warned. They had refused to listen. Now, they were paying the price for centuries of arrogance, for every life ignored, and for every warning dismissed. Humanity had not only survived, they had risen as a force that could not be denied. And Captain Adrian Voss, standing alone on the observation deck, allowed a rare moment of pride and solemnity to wash over him. Humanity had struck. Humanity had triumphed. And the galaxy would never ever forget the name of Earth. The void was silent now, almost peaceful. Alien fleets that had once filled the stars with their arrogance and confidence were scattered, broken, and powerless. Across Council space, commanders could do nothing but watch as the remnants of their forces drifted aimlessly, engines failing, shields flickering, systems offline. Humanity had struck with precision, patience, and intelligence, and the galaxy had finally understood the cost of ignoring Earth. Captain Adrian Voss stood on the Bridge of Vigilance, staring out at the wreckage. The stars, once indifferent witnesses to centuries of human suffering and dismissal, now reflected the aftermath of a reckoning. Each destroyed ship, each shattered command node, each flickering signal of panic told a story of centuries ignored and arrogance punished. Humanity had risen, not recklessly, but with calculated, unyielding purpose, and the Council had felt the weight of every warning they had ignored. Lieutenant Mara Kepler's fingers lingered over her console. Captain, alien forces are scattered. Command networks destroyed. Defensive systems dismantled. There is no organized retaliation left. We hold the advantage completely. Her voice was calm but carried a tremor of emotion. The crew, young and old, veteran and rookie, felt it too, the culmination of years of preparation, sacrifice, and resilience. Humanity had not only survived the first wave of conflict, they had triumphed decisively, delivering a message that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. Voss walked slowly among his crew, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "Listen carefully," he said. "This is more than victory. This is proof. Proof that humanity will not bow, will not kneel, and will not be dismissed." Every strike, every maneuver, every action carried the memory of lives lost, colonies abandoned, and warnings ignored. Humanity has endured centuries of arrogance from the Council, and now, the galaxy has seen what patience, intelligence, and unity can achieve. Remember this, and never forget why we fight. The hidden fleets, previously cloaked and silent, emerged from subspace corridors, aligning around the shattered alien remnants. The experimental weapons, energy arrays, and quantum disruptors were ready, though now they did not need to fire. Humanity had proven the point. The Council, arrogant and dismissive for so long, had been broken not by numbers, but by strategy, precision, and unyielding resolve. Across Council space, alien officers whispered in disbelief. General Kyl, once a proud and terrifying figure, now sat motionless, staring at failing consoles and scattered fleets. His eyes widened, reflecting fear, shame, and helplessness. They were patient. They planned. They anticipated everything, He could not finish. Words failed him. The council had underestimated humans for centuries, dismissed their warnings, ignored their pleas, and now they faced the unthinkable consequences. On vigilance, the crew exhaled collectively. Young officers trembled, their hands still shaking from the adrenaline and tension, while veterans nodded quietly, pride and solemnity mingling in their expressions. They had done more than fight a battle, they had changed the galaxy's perception of humanity forever. Every pulse of the ship, every surge of energy, every coordinated strike carried the weight of history, the sacrifice of those who came before, and the unbreakable will of a species that refused to bow. Voss moved to the observation deck, looking out at the void where alien fleets drifted in disarray. He thought of Earth, fragile and dismissed, of colonies destroyed and warnings ignored. He thought of every human aboard every hidden fleet, carrying the weight of history and the responsibility of justice. Humanity had not sought conquest, they had sought recognition, survival, and justice. And now, the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge their power, precision, and unbreakable resolve. "Captain," Kepler said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, "we have done it. The Council cannot recover. Their fleets are scattered. Their networks are destroyed. Humanity has proven itself beyond doubt." Voss nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the endless void. "Good. Humanity does not fight blindly. We fight with strategy, intelligence, and purpose. We fight for survival, for justice, and for every life dismissed. The Council has learned the cost of arrogance, and the galaxy has seen the truth. Humans are not to be underestimated, ignored, or silenced. We have risen, and our message is clear." The stars outside seemed to shine brighter as vigilance drifted silently through the void. Alien fleets, once proud and confident, were crippled and scattered. The Council had been warned. They had refused to listen. Now, they were paying the price for centuries of arrogance, for every life ignored, and for every warning dismissed. Humanity had not only survived, they had risen as a force that could not be denied, a species united, precise, and unbreakable. On the bridge, crew members silently acknowledged each other with nods and quiet glances. The young and the old, the veterans and the rookies, had fought together and emerged victorious. Humanity had proven that preparation, patience, intelligence, and unity were far stronger than arrogance, pride, or sheer numbers. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Captain Voss turned from the observation deck and faced his crew. "Today, we have shown the universe what humanity is capable of. We have struck decisively, and the message is clear: Earth will no longer bow. Humanity will no longer kneel. And the galaxy will never underestimate us again. Our story has only just begun, and from this day forward, humanity stands as a force that will never be ignored." The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the triumph of a species long underestimated, long dismissed, and now fully recognized. Humanity had endured, had risen, and had conquered not with arrogance, but with intelligence, patience, and an unbreakable spirit. The Council had learned, too late, that humans were unstoppable, precise, and unyielding. Captain Adrian Voss allowed a single, quiet smile. The battle was won. Humanity had struck, the Council had fallen, and the galaxy would never forget the rise of Earth and the unbreakable power of its people. And in the silent void of space, a single truth resonated, clear and undeniable: humanity had risen, and the universe would never be the same again.